Cool.
Hello and welcome. I am Sarah Seidelman and I'm super excited to welcome Amy Pearson. She is with me today. Amy, would you say hello?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, Amy, I got to meet. We took a little retreat to Hawaii and did a little surfing, a little shamanism, a little getting down. And she's a fellow Martha Beck coach who is an incredibly brave and courageous author, writer. She does not like hold anything back. And to me, that's one of the best qualities of, that's what I look for when I look for something. Do I want to read this? Is this person going all the way? Are they just putting all their cards on the table? That's what I look for. And Amy does that beautifully. And so we were going to talk, I just wanted her to share kind of a little bit about her writing process because if you get her newsletter, and you should definitely subscribe to it, she just consistently shows up and tells stories. She's a wonderful storyteller, and she's a busy mama with 3 kids, 2 young pets. Your kids are young and your pets are young, which is really...
let's add some animals to the mix.
Just because it wasn't interesting enough.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, you should subscribe because she consistently creates content. And I think that if you're a person who's out there and you're, a creative entrepreneur, you'll want to hear more. And or if you're a person who's just like, dang it, this is the year I'm going to write my book, or this is the year I'm going to put my songs out in an album, I think Amy's going to have some stuff to share with you. So Amy, take it away.
Yeah, well, so I do enjoy writing. I think I think just being creative is important to everyone. And for me, I have found that that kind of creative expression for me really has been through writing. And I learned that just as a coach, and kind of by default, they tell you should write a blog. So I was like, okay. And so I started to write a blog, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed writing about some of the things in my life and some of the ahas that I've had as a coach, and using tools on myself. And so that was sort of how I discovered that I enjoyed the process, the creative process. And then just recently, I'd say probably, I'm so bad at timelines, but I think it's probably been a year and a half. I've been working on a bigger project. I've been working on this memoir project. And I'm on my second edit, so it's going to be a little while longer. There's going to be quite a few more edits, but that process has been very different for me, just because I'm someone who likes instant gratification. I think a lot of us are, right? We want to, yeah. And so I think it's easier to write 500 words and put it out to your community and, see what happens, or post it on social media and see what the response is. But this has been a different process for me. And really, there are very few people who are reading it besides me. Yeah. So it's kind of like a process of, I would say, faith. It's like, I don't know why I'm writing this. I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know if people are going to like it, but I'm showing up to do it anyway. And as you mentioned, it's not always easy, because I do have 3 kids who are in elementary school, and just recently added those animals, 3 animals. And I've got a lot going on. So it is something that has been a big challenge for me, and it's a new challenge. It's something that I've really had to, it's been a learning process, but I just keep moving forward.
And then love that you say, like, you've got this attitude of faith. Like, I'm doing this. I have no idea where it's going, how it's going to turn out, how it will be received, if it will be successful. And when we say successful, I think we all know what that means. Like, that somebody will legit want to buy it, or it'll make it somehow, people will say, this is worth reading, and tell their friends about it.
Exactly.
And I think that attitude of detachment is so powerful and difficult to achieve. But have you found, like, I know when I was writing Swimming with Elephants, I had some really beautiful moments of learning about myself and connecting with others. Like, as I was telling this story, I had to go like make some phone calls and call people like, do you remember this scene, what was happening there? And like, I mean, so many moments where I would just be crying, like remembering something because it was sad, because it was moving. Have you had experiences like that? That
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's it has been so fascinating. I think they say that when you're going and revisiting the past, you relive that,
yeah.
and so the story that I'm writing really has I've had to go back and really revisit my entire life. And as a life coach, I kind of felt like I had done a lot of work, but
Yeah.
it's different. It's a different process, and even writing is a different process than some of the tools that I have used and really found helpful in my work as a coach. So, like some of the thought work and all of those things that I've done to really help me. This is a different process. Writing is a different process, and it requires you to go back and really revisit things and release. I think for me, I've had to release a lot of trauma, and I've it's been so cool to go back and then give myself permission to allow those stories to have attention, like to give them the attention. I've never given myself permission to give attention to some of those stories. I would always say, oh, that's, somehow I would downplay those, like they weren't important, or you shouldn't go and look at those, or it's just whining, or you're just getting stuck in that. And so for me, there have been so many levels of healing, and it is really fascinating how you do relive it. You release a lot of trauma, and for me, I've just given myself permission to go back and look at things and make connections and see things in a way that I would have never been able to do. So I really feel like now that I've been through the process and I've written this story, that everyone should do it. I think it's just, if anything, that has been an incredible process, and it's been incredibly healing. I've actually gotten really sick this year. Like I've had a lot of physical things come up, and I really think that is because I've been processing so much. So it does require a lot of self-care. But I think in the end, it has been really, really healing for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Last year when I was working on some edits for the last book, is like I threw my back out to the point where it was like I was so hobbled. And I was like, what is going on? And it was so much fear, I think, too, around like, oh my gosh, this means so much to me. And I had to let go and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I totally concur with the healing part. And I remember thinking towards the end, like, oh my gosh, when you get to decide how you're going to tell your story, and you get to frame up every incident, everything that ever happened to you, you get to decide, what does that mean? What does that say about me as a person? And it was exciting because at the end, I sort of felt like, yeah, I've been some dark places and I've done some things I'm maybe not too happy about myself, and I could have done better, but I'm on a trajectory, and I felt like this feeling of inner strength, like I am the hero in my journey. And I think the same that you saying, like, I wish everybody would have that opportunity. But talk about this, like, time. So how do you manage that time? Because I find a lot of my clients are like authors or creatives that are a little bit frustrated, and a lot of them have other obligations like real jobs or real live children or whatever it is, fill in the blank, and they have a hard time prioritizing their work because we don't know what the outcome is. It's not like if you put 10 hours, you're going to get $40 an hour and help support your family and pay the grocery bill.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, what has helped me is just thinking about just doing something, just doing something. And so, what I've done that has worked for me up until the new puppy. But so now I'm sort of reshuffling a little bit, but what has worked is to get up early in the morning, because that's quiet here, and work on it and see how much I can get done then. And just, I don't usually work on it over the weekends, but sometimes I do. I think, sometimes we get caught up in those shoulds, like we should be working on it every single day, or we should have this much done. And so for me, what has been helpful is just to show up and keep going and just keep doing it. And like if I don't do it, like if I don't write one day, then I don't allow that to destroy me. I'll use that as an excuse to discredit me. That has been really helpful, because I've read stuff, like Stephen Pressfield's stuff, and
Yeah.
do the work, and I'm like, for me, what was really helpful is just to be like, oh, like I don't remember who I was listening to who was a writer, and she was like, I don't write every day. She writes like a bunch on one day, and I was like, oh, okay, so I can write how I write. That works for me. And so I think just getting out of those like preconceived ideas of what a writer looks like and what a writer's process looks like, and just show up the way that you show up and just do it. And so for me, it's mostly just been in the mornings. And then if I have extra time, I try, but you're right. It's like, it's not the lowest hanging fruit. And so if you don't, give it priority, or like, if you don't make time for it, it really can, be something that you can continue to put off. And so for me, it's sort of a mix of, yes, this is a priority. And then not beating myself up if my process isn't some of the other, like my process is what I think it should be in my mind.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. It was really freeing knowing, oh my gosh. So like Cheryl Strayed, for example, locks herself in a hotel room for like 3 days and does nothing but write. Like she doesn't even barely sleep. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't work for me at all. I mean, I heard that and it just gives me the hives. Like it sounds for me, but that's what works for her. And so I love that. Just like what works for you. And mine keeps shifting and varying. It's always different. Recently I've just started setting aside some time to work on a new project. And then I watch myself letting other people fill that time. I'm like, oh, sure, we can do that. And I'm looking at my calendar saying that's like Sarah's special magical creative time. And I'm like putting something on it. And then I'm consciously just noticing, are you going to do that again? Or are you going to do that next week? So,
yeah, I have one of these planners. And isn't it pretty?
Yeah, it is pretty.
For hanging from it. But I really do block stuff out. That helps me a lot. If I just block it out in my week, then that helps me. So that's another thing. I think it's just kind of figuring out what works for you. But the biggest thing for me is less about what I do and more about what I think, because it's so easy. Like even now, like I'm on this edit of my book where I have to get rid of like a minimum of 15,000 words. And I'm reading through my book again. And I'm just like, again, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not very good. This is, and I think I'm reading this amazing memoir right now. And I'm like comparing myself, and that just is going to happen with whatever project, whether it's writing, whether it's, decoupage, however you say that. But those thoughts are going to come up. And I think for me, what has been really helpful is, again, just going, I hear that, but I'm just going to keep doing this, and I'm just going to trust that there's a reason why I am compelled to continue this project. There's a reason why I'm compelled to do this. And I guess just trust that. So even though I'm like, I'll read my stuff and I'll be like, oh my gosh, and I'll feel really sort of discouraged, and the thoughts will come like, what are you doing? Right. And then I'll just be like, I'm just going to keep working on this project and just move forward. And that's, I think, for me, the biggest thing, because there have been so many opportunities for me to give this up or not even let myself start it.
Yeah. Amen. It's like that willingness to continue in the dark, not knowing, I think is huge. Yeah. Well, thank you for all those writing insights. And I personally cannot wait to read the book when it comes out. And I'm super excited because I know it's going to be something really real and really touching. And it's going to touch me because everything that you've written is just, like I said, honest. And I think that trumps everything.
Well,
Um,
I'm gonna hit you up to be one of my beta readers. So.
oh, I am ready. I am ready.
All right.
So I always like to ask people, what have you had any wild beasties on your mind lately, or have you had any wild beastie visitors that have helped you out in any way?
Yeah, it's funny because now that you mention it, just this morning I'm out in the back with the dog, and the seagulls come, and I haven't looked at those up in my app yet, but one thing about the seagulls is that they always remind me of my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, because she used to live at the beach, and it's always she's always just been a really supportive figure in my life. She's not in this, she died, but she's always been such a supportive figure. And so for me, whenever I get a sign like that from the ancestors, I always find that really encouraging, because a big part of my writing project right now has to do with our ancestors and what we kind of inherit from them and how we can heal. So the seagulls have really been,
Love
uh,
it.
yeah.
And birds, it seems like that's one of the main beasties. When people who have died, somebody who means a lot to us, I find a lot of people, whether it's the red cardinal is a really classic one, but just certain birds, just people know when they're around, it's like somebody's there and they're just cheering us on, which is so
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Amy, will you tell people where they can find you and talk about, yeah, anything that you've got going on right now?
Yeah, so I have been focusing a lot on my writing, and I do have a quiz that I created several years ago. It's called the Approval Quiz. You can go to approvalquiz.com, or you can just go to livebrazen.com, and you can access the quiz from my website. But it's a wonderful resource because it's all about sort of how we how we seek approval, and what that looks like for each individual person. And because it's not always sort of that stereotypical people pleaser, it doesn't always manifest that way. And I think in particular, just in light of our conversation, I think it's really helpful to have that awareness, because when you're working on a creative project, it's going to come up. You're going to be worried about other people and what they're thinking. And so hooking into the quiz and some of my resources around being stuck in that can be really helpful, I think, for creative folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy. It was a delight, and I can't wait to read the book, and I can't wait to be a beta reader, and I hope you guys all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.